All right. So, okay, here we go. We're in Vayikra. Who did the shir yesterday?
Rabbi Schiller.
Rabbi Schiller. Okay, good. Okay. Now I want to show you. I want to go into a point over here. We're in Perek Al. We got all the way to Pasuk Beis, page 544. Last time we did the first Pasuk, so we're on a roll. So we got to Pasuk Beis. So it says like this. First of all, we spoke about 544. Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleim Adam ki yakriv mikem korban la'Hashem min ha'behema min ha'bakar min ha'tzon takrivu es korbanchem. So we got to the we spoke about the idea that when you feel a sense of regret or you want to do tshuva or whatever it is, it's not enough just to say it. You got to do an action and bring a korban. We spoke about that. Now, you'll notice that in the pasuk, there's the pasuk changes the what do you call it? The pasuk changes from singular to plural. The pasuk starts with Adam ki yakriv mikem korban la'Hashem. Adam, a man, ki yakriv mikem is the singular. And then the pasuk goes on and says, Mina behema min ha'bakar min ha'tzon takrivu es korbanchem, which is plural. So it starts with the individual, and then it goes to the plural. So why do you go from singular to plural? So there's a very, very important Torah concept here, which is, and it goes in both directions, we'll see in a second. What you do as an individual affects the community. So as an individual, if I'm looking around the room over here, I see this is, with all these things hanging down, and, it just kind of reminds me of Tarzan. You swing from one to the other. I'm not going to try it because I don't think that this is as steady as the vines, But in the Tarzan, he was always swinging. Do you ever see Tarzan swinging from trees from one tree to another? That's pretty impressive layout here, with the ties hanging up. Those are at least as nice as my ties. So I should really take one and wear one home today. So what you do as an individual affects the community, positive and negative. So for example, if a person, let's say you come late to a shir, or you come late to davening, so that affects other people. People look at it and say, well, if he could come late to davening, I can come late to davening too. We don't live in a vacuum. You live in a community. In community, people are affected by each other. That's a rule. It's a rule you find all the way through Torah. So the Gemara makes a very harsh statement. The Gemara in Bracha says, a person who eats without making a bracha. If you take pleasure from this world without making a bracha, okay, you've symbolically, it's a slap in the face to God. God gave you an apple and you just took it and you ate it. And I remember being every time when I travel, I notice people, they give them their food and they start eating. I don't see that anywhere when you're in a Jewish community and in a Jewish home, from home. You never see that. All you see, people make brachas. It's as instinctive as wearing a yarmulke. You make a bracha. My grandchildren, my son-in-law, they've moved in by us now for a while because my daughter's near the end of pregnancy. And so in the morning he takes, my granddaughter, I don't know if she's 2 yet, every morning he takes her, goes over to the sink and he does Nagelwasser with her. She washes. She's 2 years old. They train them when they're young. When I give them candy, the grandchildren, I give them candy, the kid takes, I say, what's that? Get a bracha. And they know they're supposed to make a bracha. Sometimes they're eager to eat the candy. And sometimes, it says, Baruch She'akol Di'eh Bidvaro. The abridged version of the bracha. But at least they know they're supposed to be making a bracha. Sometimes they make the wrong bracha. Borei B'nei Mezonos, She'akol. But at least it's part of the training. You don't put food in your mouth without a bracha. I had an Arab mailman once came to my house. Nowadays I wouldn't do it, but when we first moved into the neighborhood, there was an Arab mailman. So it was a boiling hot day. I invited him into the house. I asked him, do you want a drink? To come in the house to get a drink. He walked into the house. As he crossed the threshold, I saw him mumbling something. And I asked about it. He says they make a blessing, whatever the Arab version is, they make a blessing when he crossed the threshold. I gave him a drink. He muttered something before he took the drink. You make a bracha. So a guy takes an apple, you take a bite. I was sitting on a plane. I was sitting on a plane once. I was about from cross country. So I gave, what's it called, the red eye. So I get on the plane. There was an Oriental sitting next to me. He was against the window. The plane takes off. This guy fell asleep. He fell asleep. He must have slept for 4 hours straight. After about 4 hours, she comes down the aisle, and she's coming with this breakfast snack pack that you could buy. That was completely not kosher. I didn't buy it. This guy says, yeah, I'll take one. And he immediately takes it. I remember he opened it up, and there's some crackers, butter, and all he did was just took it and started eating. And I'm looking at this guy, I'm thinking to myself, what about Nagovasser? And what about, I didn't say it to him, or you just slept for 4 hours. What about washing your hands? What about going to bed? What about an Asher Yatzar? What about nothing? Just straight in, dove in. We don't do that. It completely, it looks strange. And I see it all around. You see people are eating and they take it and immediately start eating. So a Torah Jew, you have to make a bracha. You know what the Gemara says if you don't make a bracha, if you get benefit from this world without making a bracha? You know what the Gemara says about it? It says you are a partner to the most destructive man in Jewish history, which is Yeravam ben Nevat. Yeravam ben Nevat was the one who he erected these 2 golden calves to stop the Jewish people from going up to Yerushalayim. They had to worship. And later on, Yeravam ben Nevat, the Nach says, he is a chote umachti es rabim. He is a sinner who's caused the public to sin. And he loses his portion in the world to come. You think Yeravam ben Nevat, sure, he got the entire Jewish people to worship idols. That's pretty nasty. If you eat an apple without making a bracha, the Gemara says you're a partner of Yeravam ben Nevat. Whoa, I didn't make it. I didn't get other people to worship apples. What did I do wrong? The answer is if somebody sees you making a bracha, well, if he doesn't have to make a bracha, I don't make a bracha either. So now you are creating a ripple effect and causing other people to sin. So you're part. That's what the Torah says. Adam ki yakriv bikem. Why is this individual bringing a korban? Why does an individual have to bring a korban? Well, he obviously feels he did something wrong. He forgot that he didn't put on tefillin. He didn't put up a mezuzah. We're talking about non-mandatory korbanos yet. We'll see later on with the sin offerings. But he did something non-mandatory. Whoa! You know what happens to such a person? The end of the pasuk is takrivu es korban. You plural must bring your korban. Where did the plural come in? Because that individual veered off. So now there's others we could assume were negatively affected. That's what the Torah is telling you. You did something wrong, so other people are negative. 1 second, there's a positive. What's the positive? If you do a mitzvah, then you can be sure that other people are going to be affected also. By the way, without trying. Don't try to get people to watch you. People will notice you when you do something right. People notice. You put money in the pushkin, sure, somebody's going to say, oh yeah, right, I forgot to give tzedakah, I'll give tzedakah too. And so on and so forth. I just want to give you a couple of examples. These are shockers. There was a Baal Tshuva. There was a guy who was a Baal Tshuva. And they asked him, Shire, you'll love this. They asked this guy, what inspired you to become a Baal Tshuva? He was already married, had 3 kids. What inspired you to be a Baal Tshuva? The guy said he was once, before he was religious, he was, or observant, whichever word they choose to use, he was in Dizengoff Square in Tel Aviv, where I haven't been since I was, the last time I was in Dizengoff in Tel Aviv, I think it was 18. So I haven't been there. Haven't had great cause to go there. So he was in Dizengoff Square in Tel Aviv. He was sitting at a club with some of his buddies. And all of a sudden he's looking out the window and he sees an 18-year-old yeshiva bacher walking across Dizengoff. And he notices that this yeshiva bacher is looking downwards. How do you know this?
I've heard this somewhere else.
He's looking.
Now I know it's true.
Maybe it was in a previous Gilgal. Maybe we spoke about this in a previous incarnation. Could be. Right? So he says he sees this yeshiva guy's walking, yeshiva bacher, 18-year-old bacher, and he's looking down at the ground. So he says to his friends, 1 second, I want to check something. And he walks outside, and he said later, he followed this bacher all the way across Dizengoff Square. He said never once did this boy raise his eyes off the ground. He said if an 18-year-old male, if there's a force in the world that could get an 18-year-old male to keep his eyes down on the ground in Dizengoff Square, he's got to find out what that force is. So he investigated, found out about Torah, and he became from. That's what he said. Now, that 18-year-old male doesn't even know. He's not aware. How does he know? All he knew is he wants to get across. Why was he anywhere near Dizengoff? It's a good question, Shai. I don't know why. Could be he was taking a shortcut. He probably should have gone some other route. But at the end of the day, this guy saw what he was doing, and he was affected by it. When you behave a certain way, people see you. Chicago, Ir HaKodesh, Chicago, which is, by the way, you know that the Midwest accent, the Chicago Midwest accent, studies have been conducted that have shown that it's the most correct form of spoken English. Are you aware of that? The studies were done in the Midwest of the United States. The studies were conducted in Chicago. Yeah. So that's where they. So in Chicago, Ir HaKodesh, there is a Lakewood Kollel, and one day there's a Lakewood Kollel. It's a regular mainstream Kollel. One day, a secular young man showed up at the Lakewood Kollel, and he approached the Rosh and said, "I'd like to study Torah." So the Rosh Kollel, and this is, a guy comes in, it was not made for that, but if a guy comes in, we're certainly going to help him out. They set him up, they start learning with him, set him up with a program, whatever it was. Said, what brought you here? He said, I'm a vendor at Wrigley Field. He's a vendor, Wrigley Field where the Cubs play. And there are frum guys who are vendors at Wrigley Field. They're frum guys. A lot of my friends were regular. I myself vended a couple of times. I vended once at a Cubs game, I vended once at a Bears game, substituting for somebody else. And these guys, they were regular frum vendors, and he said two things happened. First of all, after the sixth inning, the vendors get together every day, they get together, and they daven mincha. And if you know anything about vending, which I learned also, when you're vending, you're hustling. And every minute that you're moving, you're making money. There's cash moving. And these guys stopped. They dropped everything. The guy was very impressed. They dropped everything. I mean, it's costing them money every day that they have to go. He said, but the kicker was when there was one of the religious vendors, a guy gave him a bill, paid for a couple of Cokes, and the guy took a look at it, and it was a $100 bill. And he said to the guy, sorry, you gave me $100. You're supposed to, you were meant to give me a 10, not $100. And he gave back the 100. If you ever met vendors, I met some of these vendors. Most of the vendors that you meet at Wrigley Field would not be returning a $100 bill. And he said he was so impressed that he has to find out why these religious guys, what makes them what they are. And so he showed up at he asked around, apparently found out where the Lakewood Kollel is. So there's this guy is giving back a $100 bill. They're davening mincha. They're not thinking about other people watching them. Yet what you do as an individual is going to have an effect on other people. How do you like that? It goes on and on. I'll give you another example. I had a guy here at Ohr Somayach. Now, listen to this. You're going to love this. Where are you, Shaya? Oh, this is just for you. I was at Ohr Somayach, and they used to have an Israeli program here, going back years ago. They used to have an Israeli program here. And I would eat lunch in the yeshiva, and we would come in as the Israelis were finishing. And there was this one Israeli, it was a Sephardi. And he waited later after everybody else. He benched. After he finished eating, he benched. And I watched this guy, and it happened a few times. This guy would bench. And, some guys bench. You take a bencher, you bench. This guy would go, with all the theatrics, and he was singing it to himself, and he was singing the benching, and a lot of that, a lot of action. And I would watch this guy day after day, and I'm thinking to myself, the guy's a little, his temperature's a little high for Baal Tshuva, he's a little, and this would happen day after day. And also one day I looked at it and thought, you know what? This guy's really benching. Maybe I ought to work on my benching. And I actually decided to go home. I didn't do it with a Sephardi accent. There was no kabur potechet, but I decided to, maybe the guy's onto something over here. And this happened for a while, and I'd watch the guy. I was intrigued. The guy, and he would finish benching, he would leave. Then one day, and my own benching, listen, I wasn't bringing down fires, flames from heaven, but at least it was a little, I was thinking about what I was doing. And then one day I decided I'm going to thank the guy. The guy inspired me. So the next day I decided I would thank the guy. He didn't show up. I never saw him again. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. How's that, Shai? I told you, I knew this would be for you. Who knows? You never know. You want a blessing? Should I give you a bracha? Who knows who I've been meeting? He never saw the guy again. I want to thank the guy. I never saw the guy again. So you're watching. Now listen to this one. Listen to this one. There was a yeshiva guy. There was a yeshiva guy who was uninspired, an FFB. And he was in a yeshiva. And one day he said, I've had enough. He goes to the Rosh Yeshiva. He says, it's not for me, learning's not for me, all this academic. Yeah, I want to go do something. He leaves the yeshiva. He comes back a couple of days later. He sits down and he starts learning like a house on fire. Sits down in the base medrash and he starts learning like a house on fire. Okay, happened the first day. Second day, comes back again, didn't pick his face up from the Gemara. Comes back a third day, and again, he's drilling. So finally, the Rosh Yeshiva comes over to him, and he says to him, Yitzchak, you left the yeshiva 2 weeks ago. You told me you're out of here. You're learning now like you've never learned before. What happened to you? He says, I'll tell you the truth. I was not intending to come back. I was draying around. I was all over the place. So I was hanging out with my friends. We went from one place to another place. And last week, we happened to be in Geula, right here in Yerushalayim, within Geula. And we're walking, draying around, looking, ate some falafel or something. And all of a sudden, I hear yelling. And I take a look, and I see there's a cab driver, and there's a seminary girl. And he's yelling at her, she's yelling at him. And I see that apparently he, is charging her a little bit more than she felt she should pay. And all of a sudden, we see they're here yelling, so we're just watching. She throws down the money in the cab and she slams the car shut and he drives off. The problem was she was wearing some sort of wraparound thing and it got caught in the door. And as he drove off, the wraparound thing came, it just left her in an extremely embarrassing situation right there in the middle of the street. And everybody's frozen. And all of a sudden we saw two yeshiva guys. They immediately ripped off their jackets and they came running to this girl without looking at her. And they draped their suit jackets over her, and then they ran off in the other direction. And I said to myself, if that's how Yeshiva Bacher behaves, I want to be a Yeshiva Bacher. And therefore I'm here to stay, Rabbi. Came back to Yeshiva. You never know. You just never know who's going to be inspired by what you're doing. That's the singular to the plural. I have a guy in Los Angeles who's the head of a program. He runs a Kiruv program in Los Angeles. And he does, periodically, a Shabbaton. And the Shabbaton, he invites all these secular people to the Shabbaton. So he told me he was doing a Shabbaton, and what happened was he was walking through a supermarket, and a young lady comes over to him, like in her 30s, early 30s. She comes over to him. She says, Rabbi Plony, do you recognize me? And this is a guy who's great with names. He never forgets a face. Never forget. And he looks at her and goes, frankly, no. She goes, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. I was at the Shabbaton about 10 years ago when you did the Shabbaton outside of Los Angeles. You did a Shabbaton. I was completely secular. I wasn't interested in going. I was working a high-pressure job. My friends invited me to come along. They said, here's some classes, some classes in, in Judaism. And I decided, all right, I want to have a relaxing weekend, have some good food. So I came to the Shabbaton. I was there. And I'll tell you the truth, I didn't attend that many classes. I was just there because I wanted to relax. I went to one or two, but it didn't do it for me. I was at the Shabbaton. And then Friday night, I came down for the meal. And I noticed at the meal, you had your whole family there. There were all these people sitting at the Beit, a massive lunchroom, a big operation. And you had your family there. And I noticed that right before we sat down to eat, I saw you giving your children a blessing. And I looked at that and I said to myself, wow, in a Torah home, there's a connection like that between the parents and the children. That's the kind of home that I want to have. And then I left, I became frum, I got married, and it's all because of you, because blessing your children. How many people are thinking when you're blessing your children on Shabbos, it's just something you do. Yet somebody was watching that, and that itself inspired this person to then make a complete life change. So the Torah is telling you over here, it works in all directions. It works positive, it works negative. That's the negative, that's the singular to the plural. Okay. Now, take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, Adam ki yakriv mikem korban la'Hashem. So Rashi says, what is it? It's it's a left column of Rashi. And Rashi says, take a look. Adam. Everybody see it? It's a left column of Rashi, about 9-10 lines down. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Adam, lama nemar. Why does it say man? When you're makriv a korban, why Adam? Says Rashi, Adam lama nemar. Says Rashi, ma Adam harishon. Just as Adam harishon, Adam, lo hikriv min hagezel. Adam harishon did not bring offerings from what was stolen. Why not? She'akol hayashalo, it all belonged to him. So nothing could be stolen. Af atem lo takrivu min hagezel. You also don't steal. Torah is telling you there's no such thing. The idea of the ends do not justify the means. You can't steal to bring a korban. It's like stealing your money to give tzedakah. There's no such thing as Robin Hoods in Judaism. There's no Robin Hood, or what we would call Ruvain Hood. There's no Ruvain. There's no Robin that we steal from the poor to give to the steal from the rich to give to the poor. And of course, there was also Dennis Moore. You know who Dennis Moore was? You know Dennis Moore? You guys ever see Monty Python? Yeah. Dennis Moore, riding through the night. Dennis Moore, steals from the poor, gives to the rich. That was Monty Python. That was Dennis Moore. They did a takeoff on Robin Hood. It doesn't. He steals from the poor and gives to the rich. There's no Dennis Moores. There's no Robin Hoods in Judaism. That means the means have to be kosher as well, not just the end. The means, don't go steal. I'll steal your animal to bring a korban. Oh, how ridiculous is that? It's like steal. I'm telling you, it's the same thing as taking your wallet so I could give tzedakah. And even if I intend that you should be giving the tzedakah, you still can't do that either. With all the best intention, you can't do that. You can't. What do you call it? Yeah, you can't steal. You can't steal. Well, 1 second. There's another Rashi. Then Rashi says, where is it? Where's Rashi? On Pasuk Beis. Rashi on Pasuk Beis, where he says, that's on. 1 second. No. Says Adam Arishon, not to bring stuff. 1 second. Where is it? Rashi says, Rashi says Lahotzi Mumar. No. Where is it? Lahotzi Saneva, Lahotzi Samuksa. Rashi says somewhere over here, I saw it, I know I saw it, now I'm not crazy. Rashi says that you can't, it says, Ki yakriv mikem, Adam ki yakriv hotzi es hamumar. A mumar is, can't find the Rashi, I don't know where the Rashi went to. Rashi says, where Rashi is, I saw it. Tell me, maybe it's on Rashi and Pasuk Gimel. Just 1 second. Okay, I don't know where it is. Rashi says somewhere over here that the Torah is telling you that you have to bring a korban. You bring the korban. When you bring a korban, Lahotzi es hamumar. I don't know where the Rashi, I saw the words in the other comment. Lahotzi es hamumar. A mumar is a person who is he's abandoned Judaism. Let's say a guy's abandoned Judaism, he's converted to Christianity as a Jewish apostate, and he decides to bring a korban. He's a mumar. We don't accept his korban. You don't accept his korban. A goy, a non-Jew, you do accept his korban. How do you like that? A non-Jew could bring an offering to the Beis Hamikdash, and you accept his korban. A Jewish apostate, you don't accept his korban. So now you have an interesting situation. Two guys come up to the Beis Hamikdash with the korban. Both are idol worshippers. One of the guys would say to you, "What's your name?" "Yankel Goldman." Right? "Sorry, you're out." "What's your name?" John McCarthy." "Oh, okay, we'll take it." Right? What happened over here? Why yes, this one yeah, and that one no? Why are you, they're both bringing a korban. Why is it that the Jewish apostate, you don't accept his korban, the goy you do? The answer is, why are they bringing it? A Jew started out at this point. This guy started out at this, and he's dropped down. Now, why is he bringing a korban? Why is this Jew bringing a korban? Well, it could be he's trying to do tshuva. But if he's trying to do tshuva, so he would also improve his other behavior. Most likely, you know why he's bringing a korban? He wants to soothe his conscience a little bit. It's like a guy who's dishonest in business, but he gives tzedakah. Why? At least that I'll do. That'll soothe because I know I'm a shyster, but at least if I give more tzedakah, so it'll justify my misbehavior in business. Sorry, we don't accept that. That doesn't work. You can't go. So a Jew's bringing a korban. He's an apostate. He's embraced idol worship, and he's bringing a korban. Probably just he wants to soothe his conscience. What about the goy? The goy is starting down here. Okay, he's an idol worshiper. What do you want from the guy? That's how he was raised. He's at least making an effort to grow a little bit. That's a korban that we're willing to accept. Where do we find an extreme example of this? You know where we find the most extreme example in Torah? You have the spies who go into the land of Israel. Who were the spies? Who were that? Moshe Rabbeinu picked the 12 spies. Who were they? One from each tribe. Which members of each tribe? Top of the line. These are the biggest tzaddikim of the generation. And what happened to them? Boom. They spiraled downwards. And when they go into the land of Israel, and then Yoshua sends 2 spies, and they go to a house. Whose house do they stay by? Rachav Hazona. Rachav Hazona, Rachav was a harlot, a prostitute, for 40 years. And then what ends up happening to her? She ends up marrying Yoshua. Do you know that? She ends up marrying Yoshua, the leader of the Jewish people. Rachav Hazona. How do you like that? You didn't expect that end of the story, did you? Yeah, Rachav Hazona. What did she do? She saved the 2 spies. She protected the spies. They made a deal with her. She saved her entire family. She converted and joined the Jewish people. Well, now, let me ask you a question. If you were investing, would you invest in the spies, the 12 spies, or would you invest in Rachav Hazona? If you were investing, who would you invest in?
Rachav Hazona.
Well, not when you knew them. Originally, you wouldn't. Originally, you would have invested in the spies, not in Rachav Hazona, right? You didn't know what was going to happen. So what's the difference? You know what they're compared to? They're compared to a tree that's fully grown and a seed that's been planted into the ground. What's the difference between the two? You know, in the stock market, there's something called investing in futures. If you had to invest in futures, which one of them would you invest in? Would you invest in a fully grown tree, or you would invest in a seed that's if you're investing in futures, I'd invest in the seed. A tree that's fully grown has nowhere to go but down. A seed has only nowhere to go but up. And therefore, in life, the goy that brings the korban, at least he's moving upwards. The Jews and apostate, what are you bringing a korban for? You know, there's a story that the Vilna Gaon met a Jewish heretic, an apostate. Not clear exactly, there are different versions of the story. They were sitting together at the table, and the Vilna Gaon gave him a cup of tea or something. And the guy picked up the cup of tea to take a drink. So the Vilna Gaon said to him, "You didn't make a bracha." So he looked at the Vilna Gaon and said, "Bracha? A bracha? I worship idols, I commit adultery, I transgress every I should make a bracha?" The Vilna Gaon said, "I got news for you, bro. He didn't call him bro. But that's when you would say bro. Right? That's exactly, that gets a bro, right? The Vilna Gaon said, I got news for you. For idol worship and immorality and all the other sins you commit, you're going to burn like blazes. But you're also going to burn for every time you didn't put on tefillin, every time you don't have a mezuzah, every time you ate without a bracha, every time you ate non-kosher. There's no such thing as, well, I do big averas, therefore I got a freebie on the little ones. You're going to be accountable all the way through on every single thing that you do. So if a person understands that you're looking for growth, you're on the way up. So at least the guy is bringing a korban. This guy is trying to soothe his conscience. When you're looking for a wife, when that time comes to look for a wife, and you obviously want a wife in Yiddishkeit, there's one thing you should be looking for. Her knowledge, how much she knows at the time that you meet her is, I wouldn't say it's inconsequential, but it's not the most important factor. What's the single most important factor?
Her ability to learn.
What's that?
Her ability to learn or desire to learn.
Not to learn, her ability to grow, her desire to grow. Is she looking to grow as a Jew? You're looking to grow, so then okay, so you didn't learn, so now you'll learn. You get more knowledge. It has to be that there's a desire to grow. You could have a woman who knows everything, and she's raised from and everything else, but she takes it for granted. She's not looking to grow in her, she's stagnating. You always invest in futures. And the same thing goes for us. You could have a bacher who's always been learning, but he's lost his pep, he's lost his energy, he's lost his motivation. You have another bacher who's looking to grow. So obviously you could always regain the motivation. But that's a principle in Torah is focus on growth. There are two types of Jews in the world. It doesn't matter what color yarmulke you wear. Doesn't matter as long as it's black. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you wear a hat, you don't wear a hat. It doesn't matter what your accent is, as long as it's Ashkenazi. It doesn't matter what your accent is. None of it matters. There's only one thing that matters. Are you growing or are you stagnating? If you're stagnating, by definition you're digressing. You're not growing. A person is a Jew who's looking to grow. We're looking to climb the steps, to climb the mizbeach, to get to the top. We are focused on growth. It's all about growth. None of us start at the same level. None of us reach the same level. None of us are at the same level. There are millions of different levels. We're looking to grow. The essential thing in life is to grow, to constantly grow. That's the factor, the single most important factor in a girl is looking for a girl who's looking to grow as a Jew. That's the most important. And we ourselves have to always make sure. Sometimes we grow more, sometimes we grow less, sometimes we hit the brakes a little, sometimes we run into a bit of an obstacle. That happens, that's all part of growth. You run into an obstacle. But it doesn't mean I forgot, it just means I'm having a bad week or having a bad day or having a bad decade, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I haven't forgot that my goal is to grow. And there are people who are not interested in growth. This is my level, I'm done growing. That's a Jew who's by definition, if we're done growing, that's a Jew by definition he's digressing. Okay. Now that we spoke about. One last point for today. Take a look at the word mikem. Adam ki yakriv mikem korban laHashem. When a person brings from you, Adam ki yakriv mikem. See that second line, last word. Adam ki yakriv mikem korban laHashem. When a person from among you brings a korban to Hashem. That's really what mikem, from among you. Look at the numerical value of the word mikem. A mem, the first mem is 40. A chaf is 20. What are we up to? 60. A final mem is another 40. What have we got? 100. What does the number 100 remind you of?
100 blessings.
100 blessings every day. Certainly doesn't remind you of my test papers in high school, that's for sure. But it reminds you of 100 blessings. That means every day we don't have korbanos. What is the point of the korban? The point of the korban is to get closer to Hashem. We don't have korbanos nowadays, right? We don't have the korbanos. What do we have instead? We have the blessings. What's the point of the blessing? To get closer to Hashem. Adam ki yakriv mikem, the commentary says you make your 100 blessings a day as if you've offered a korban. How do you like that? And by the way, I got news for you. Sometimes that's harder. The korban is a one-off. Take it to the base of Mikdash, have the thing shechted, and let the guy, and we're done. 100 blessings a day. My goodness, another Shemon Esrei lurking. Yeah, just when I thought, wow, I got mincha now. Here comes a Ma'ariv running in a car. Another Asher Yatzar. That's right. That's an offering on our part. That's an offering on our part. That keeps us focused and it keeps us connected to Kodesh Baruch Hu. I told you, how many brachas do you make in a day? 100. How many make in a week?
700.
How many make in a month?
300. According to Jewish months, 290.
We'll call it 3,000. 3,000 brachas in a month. You ever think about in those terms? How many you make in a year? 30,000 brachas. A little more, whatever it is. We'll call it for 30,000 brachas. In 10 years, how many brachas have you made? 300,000 brachas in 10 years. Can you believe it? Maybe closer to 400,000. Yeah. Huh? Is that unbelievable? The amount of brachas, the amount of things that we're saying, that's besides amains and amenia hishmei rabbas and everything else. Right. So the adam ki yakriv mikem, the mikem is 100. That represents what do you call it? That's our korban to Hashem. Okay, gentlemen, we're going to call it a day today.